squat. And the good thing, you have a white background, so that does a nice reflection.
Hello. Let me see. Hello. Welcome everyone. Please type in who you are and where you're listening from, and then we can have an idea of how much we're covering. Hello. Welcome to this live stream on teaching your child the mother language. I hope you can hear me. If you can hear me and see me, please give a shout out, give a hello, and let me be sure that I'm not talking to myself. Hello. Please say something if you can hear me. So my name is Molin Mugisha. I am the proprietor of the Africa Culture Promotion Center. And I am very happy and very proud to be able to make it today in celebration of the International Mother Language Day. Today was set aside by UNESCO as the International Mother Language Day. I think that means, hello, Anita. Hello, thank you for joining in. I see somebody from Redville, the Mobile Bibliothèque. Hello, thank you for joining in. And I was introducing myself. I'm Dr. Molin Mugisha Otim from the Africa Culture Promotion Center. I am an author of children's books aimed at teaching the African language. And today is the day that has been set aside by UNESCO as the International Mother Language Day. Now, if it is set aside, it means this is really something important and is getting recognition, mother language. I'm introducing myself and giving a few minutes for everybody to join in, and then we dig into the subject. But in the meantime, mother language, my name is Molin. My mother language is Runyankole. That is the language I started speaking as a child until the age of 6. That is, I exclusively spoke Runyankole and Ruchiga, and I got a really good base of it. And now I speak English because I was educated in English in Uganda. That is our national language, so I speak English. And I also speak Dutch because I am living in Holland, and Holland is the dominant language, so I also speak Dutch. And I understand a bit of Swahili, and I also speak Luganda because I grew up in Kampala, which is the language that is spoken in the capital of Uganda predominantly. So as you can see, I am myself multilingual, and I have 2 children. I've lived in Holland. They were born in Holland, and they speak English and Dutch because we speak English at home. My partner, who is also Ugandan, is speaking Acholi, and that is a completely different language from my language, which is Runyankole Ruchiga. So in the house, we speak to each other in English. And that is the situation we find ourselves in, that we are living in Holland. We speak to each other in English, but we do have children who speak Dutch outside in the community, and they also speak English because that's what they speak in school. And we are trying to teach them the mother language. So for those who just joined us, please let us know who you are and where you're listening in from, and in the chat section, and then we can know how much we are covering. So the reason that I am dedicating this 1 hour for us to talk about the mother language is because it is very important that the children can speak the mother language. What is the mother language? That is the language of the parents, we tend to think. But if you ask my children now, they will tell you that their mother language is English because they speak English. So in that case, my language actually to them is the minority language because they speak English and Dutch predominantly. I will keep using examples of my children because they are multilingual in a way. And why is it becoming more and more important that we have children try to learn their mother language? It's because with globalization, with people moving from one country to another, plus intercultural marriages and interracial marriages, you find that there is a lot of children whose parents don't speak the same language, who are also speaking different languages uh, from the language they use in the household. So there is a challenge that the mother language becomes the minority language, not the dominant language. So like I say, for my children, their dominant language is English. Nice to see you, Krista. Thank you for joining in. Such a long time. I wish I could see your faces, everyone. I really wish I could see your faces. It's the first time I'm doing a real live stream, so pardon if there are any mistakes or if I sound funny or anything. But back to the mother language, you find that because of the globalization, then more and more children are losing connection with their mother language. So in this live stream, we shall talk about why is it important. I'll share a story. When my children joined school, of course, when I came to Holland, I thought it's important that they can speak Dutch. So I made it a point to expose them to Dutch because they were born here and they're probably going to work here. So I exposed them to Dutch through childcare and through all community activities. So their Dutch is quite good. But I did not, at that point, make a lot of effort to expose them to my mother tongue. Like I said, I speak Runyankole and my husband speaks Acholi. So between me and my husband, we have different languages. And I didn't know then what I know now. I would have done probably a more, a better job. Coming from Uganda, where there is a cultural feeling that children should speak the language of the father, the intention was that they would then speak the mother tongue of the father, which would be Acholi. But obviously, with him being busy and going around, not enough input for them to learn Acholi, then they didn't learn it early enough, and they have not learned Runyankoli well enough. So after a while, when my son was in school, the school has what they call Mother Language Day. It's a whole week actually. And that week you can go in, the children can bring in a book from their mother language. So that was a challenge for me because I looked everywhere. I could not find a Runyankole book or an Acholi book. And indeed, my son said, I'll take a Dutch book because that's the language I speak as well, which doesn't make any sense because we actually have our own mother language. So that stimulated me to look into materials. There are not enough materials to teach the mother language. And that's when I started writing books of my own, and I'll show those later. But why is it important that they learn the mother language? What happened is as the children grew, first of all, a lot of kids in his school brought books from their language. There are kids with Finnish books, there are kids with German books, all sorts of books that was not Dutch or English. And he started to question, what am I? Oh yes, you say I'm Ugandan, but I have not much that associates me with being Ugandan. So I begin to see a struggle in them. And as I dig deeper and go into interacting with kids in the community who are multiracial or with living where in the country they are, the dominant language is not their mother tongue, I realize that gradually when they don't have any knowledge of their language, they tend to feel disconnected because language is the gateway to culture. So when you teach a language, you are also introducing them to a culture, to their culture. And when kids don't know their culture or don't understand their culture, eventually the question of who am I becomes a very big question. So it can affect their confidence, it can affect their learning. So I decided that I was going to dedicate more time into connecting them with the mother language. Of course, there are obvious reasons. When they go back to their country, they need to be able to communicate. So for some of us, and I think for some of you listening, it might seem a bit late to start introducing the child to the mother language, because the best way to learn a language is when they're very young, before the age of 6. Some studies say age of 4, some studies age of 6, but that means they need to be introduced when they're very young. So that's why we're dedicating more and more time, and you see that the UNESCO has also selected a day to be the day of the International Mother Language Day, which is today, the 21st of February. Thank you, Zainab, for tuning in. Safina from the UK. Irene, thank you for your comment. Yes, it is a very important topic. Now, why are we saying it is an important topic these days? It's because it's like we're just realizing. So I will, first of all, like I said, I speak Runyankole, Ruchiga, and Luganda. I did not go to school to learn any of those three languages. I just learned them in the community because, of course, we spoke it at home. But Luganda, I learned it playing with friends outside. Also, when I was in school, majority of the kids spoke Luganda, so I spoke Luganda. I learned it. And I speak it very well. So that tells you that to learn a language, you do not need to, it's not through school that they learn a language. Through school, they will learn academics. Yes, they can learn a language, but can they be fluent in it? Maybe not. So that's why it becomes important that we start early teaching the mother language. So again, before I go to why, actually to say the why, besides the fact that they can get introduced to their culture, language is the gateway to a culture. If you know a certain language, you get to know more the culture of the people. The second thing is for their own confidence, identity. Who am I? An example, my son is Ugandan and Dutch. He speaks Dutch very well. And for the most of the time, he is associating as a Dutch person because he's Dutch by nationality, but also Ugandan by descent, and his roots are in Uganda. At one point, if he visits Uganda and cannot even speak the language, the Uganda people are telling him, "This, you're not Ugandan, you're Dutch." But when he is among the indigenous Dutch people, obviously he looks different. So although he can speak Dutch, he does not feel fully Dutch. So there is a challenge of identity. Who am I? And one of the things that identifies you to your culture is your language. So once they have that worked out, who am I, very early, then they can be confident to go out and take on the world and study and learn. And even studies show that when they learn language very early, their mother tongue, they are more confident in the other subjects. Now, the challenges are, of course, there are a lot of challenges, and maybe we should talk about those first. What makes it difficult for us to teach our children the mother tongue? First and foremost, like I said, there is not enough material. And if you know any challenges you're experiencing, please put them in the chat box as well. We do not have enough material. Like I told you, the first time my school required my son to go with a mother language book, I couldn't find any. That is when I started to create material in the mother language. So I was looking for material. For example, I came across this book, which has short stories in Runyankole, very small book. So that is like, after searching and looking, and you cannot even find it, let's say, for example, on Amazon or anything. So I started to write my own. First, I wrote the Acholi one, Let's Learn Acholi. The material itself is very basic, just introducing basic words about basic things, basic everyday things. So I started to make materials myself. But of course, you cannot make them as fast as they are needed and as much as they are needed. I also wrote one in Kinyarwanda, Let's Learn Kinyarwanda, translated with a friend of mine. And it is also quite similar, like basic. It's a start. And then I also wrote one about So Said Grandma, and I'll read a little bit for you from this later. And this is one of the things I miss living far away is the wise sayings, the wise African sayings. So I miss those, and I wanted to be able to communicate this to my kids. Like when I was talking with my grandma, when my grandma is talking, it's very easy if she just says one expression and you understand exactly what she means. So I put a collection of them in simple language with some pictures and with some illustrations. And so this was my third book. But the challenge is there are not enough people writing books to teach the African language. There are not enough people writing books to teach the African culture. So, and I'm not saying this only for African. For example, Krista, for you, I don't know, Krista, maybe type for us in the chat section. Do you have enough books in your language, in your mother language? Do you have enough books in Filipino? I've seen some. You probably have way more than we have, but we don't have enough people writing these books. So then the challenge is that when you want to start teaching your child the mother language, you don't have enough material. That's the first challenge. Of course, the second challenge, and by the way, this is not only for people who are living abroad, even people living in Uganda. The second obstacle is that we have had, at least I speak for those of us from Africa, we've had a negative experience speaking our mother tongue. What do I mean? When I was in school, we were not allowed to speak the local language. If you spoke the local language, there were several punishments depending on the school you were in, because they wanted you to learn English, to speak English. So if you spoke your mother language, you were actually a problem. Either they made you wear a very ugly sack or make you wear something on your back. Everybody knows that you are caught speaking the local language, or they write your name on a speech card and they will announce it to the whole school that these are the language defaulters, so to speak. So that negative experience with our local language means that even when we are somewhere else, even when we have the freedom to speak it, we tend to give more importance to the foreign language. So that is actually a bigger problem than you can imagine. It also means that even people who are living back on the continent, in Africa, for example, I use that because that's where I come from, but it could really be for other countries as well, are not able to speak the language because if the kids are in school and they're living, for example, in the city, they have to speak the language of the school, and so they don't speak it at home as well. Because they are thinking, I don't want to hinder my child's learning of English, for example, or Dutch, or German. The same thing when we live abroad. I live in Holland, and you find that you have enough parents who are, because they're also trying to speak Dutch, they try to speak Dutch to their kids because they want their kids to learn the Dutch, which is also not correct because, first of all, your knowledge of Dutch is not good enough. And the child has Dutch as the dominant language, they will learn Dutch outside. So to overcome that obstacle, speak the language at home and proudly. The other challenge to teaching the language, the other obstacle, is when there is not enough input of the language. You speak it occasionally. Today you speak, tomorrow you don't speak. So then the child does not really get enough input of the language. For those who are joining in, please let us know who you are and where you're joining in from, and then we can know how much we're covering. And some of the examples, I can try to make them more towards where you are. The other thing that discourages us from using the mother tongue is we think, for example, I speak Runyankole. When will my child need Runyankole? Apart from when they go back home to the village. So it tends to discourage me from putting in the effort because I'm thinking it's not a very useful language. But if you remember what I said, if the child knows their language from the start, their mother tongue, they will be more confident out there. So it is important. It is important because it is your mother tongue. Imagine when you go home, they can discuss with grandma, they can have some level of conversation. Hello, Marilla. Hello, Noctula. Welcome. The other challenge is that the other challenge is that the language, sometimes even I experience that I don't have enough vocabulary. Even if it's my mother tongue and I'm very fluent in it, I find that over time I am forgetting and I don't have the words. So even the limitation of the language in the parent, then you find that it limits you communicating to your child in that language. Hi, Gabriela. Yes, that's the mother of my Dutch, Italian, American godchild. See all the nationalities in one child? So that makes it a challenge. So while we are looking at how can we introduce the mother language, then we have that challenge of even I don't have enough of the mother language. So then I don't even attempt to start at all. So those are some of the reasons, and you might have more reasons. Please share them in the chat section, and then we shall also see how to tackle them. But now I'm going to talk about how do we tackle the problem of not enough material. Yes, you might find occasional books out there, but there are not enough materials. So how do we solve that challenge? Now, let me tell you something that might make it actually easier for you to understand that actually it's a difficult thing. It needs dedication, teaching the mother language when you're living away from home. But these are some of the things that you can do that will help teach your child the mother language. Start early. Start early. And sorry, everyone. Kyla, would you like to sing a song?
Yep.
Oh, here is my daughter who is also learning the mother tongue, and she practiced because she wants to sing this song, which we have been learning, and that will bring us more to how do we teach the language. So we want to sing a song, and because she's also a musician in the making, she wants to sing it in the two voices. So I'll sing the first voice, and she'll sing the second voice. So I'll sing the song Ruhondeza. Are you ready? It's just a small song that we used to sing as kids. And Gabriela says hi. So you can say hi, Gabriela. Aurelia's mommy.
Hi, Gabriela.
Okay, so Kyla, let's go. You sing the second voice, I sing the first voice. Okay, 1, 2, 3, go. Omushi, omushi jarundeza. Akabya, akabya mebiro bina. Abyesi, abyesire chiro chimwe. Ruhonde, ruhondeza bino busasi. Okay, that's a beautiful voice. You can say bye-bye and carry on with your work.
Wait a minute. It's sort of about this person.
Oh, she wants to explain the song. Yes,
It's
explain
about
the
this
song.
person named
Ruhondeza.
Ruhondeza that slept for 4 days.
Yeah, for 4 days.
He thought it was just one night, and
Yeah.
he's very sleepy.
He's
like
a very
someone
sleepy
I
man.
know.
He's a very sleepy man, Ruhondeza. So say goodbye, and Krista says hello as well. Krista, your teacher from Zane. Okay, so
Beautiful.
that was one way how you can teach the mother language. When you start early, then it's much easier because children automatically learn the language. They can learn up to 3 or 4 languages at the same time. Now, one of the best ways to teach language is through songs. And now more and more, I'm singing our songs that we used to sing when growing up, when playing, because through songs, they learn the language. They increase their vocabulary because now when she's saying, wait, what is Ruhondeza? I say, oh, that's somebody who sleeps very long, who sleeps very much. So that is the best way to learn the language, through songs. The second way, please leave it open. Leave it open. The second way to learn the language is through reading. Reading is one of the best things for kids because kids naturally love to read. Kids will read, they'll read books, they'll read stories, they love to read and they love stories. So a combination of the two is quite very good. So if you can read to your child, please start early. Now, today I said I'll demonstrate how to read a child because we already said there are not enough books. So how do you read to your child in a language when you don't have the books? That I will demonstrate after. The other way of introducing the language to your kids is when you are introducing them to people who speak the language. Like if you can select a nanny who speaks that language, then do that. Or people make play dates with people who speak the language. So reading and of course you speaking the language to them. Now, what do you do when you have people, two people in the home, like mother and father who speak different languages? Then you make sure that each parent will speak their language to the children and consistently. Learning the language is about input. If you speak a bit here and speak a bit there, then it's not enough. But if you do it consistently, sometimes it looks like you're not producing results, but they are absorbing the words and they're learning the vocabulary. Remember, sometimes you don't have enough vocabulary to be able to make sentences, for example. But you do notice that when you speak to them, give them an instruction, they tend to follow it. So it means they understand you, they understand the instruction, they understand what you said. So keep at it and keep speaking the language. Now, of course, like I said, for some of us who are like late bloomers in that sense, like starting late, because like I said, it's easy, it's best to start early. But then if you can't start early, if you have to start now, like for example, my daughter is 8, she knows, she understands quite a bit. And now as I do more, especially through songs, she really loves singing and she loves stories. So I'm doing more of that. And she begins to have more and more words. She's taking more and more vocabulary up. And then she might be confident to speak. Whenever you can, when you visit your home country, you notice that when you come back from your home country, they speak very well. So that is also another way. So that is one of the best ways. So language acquisition starts from even before the child is born. So when you're pregnant, expecting your child, speak to your child. When the child is born, when they begin to, like when you can carry them, they can sit upright, they are very interested. When they can begin to see and recognize colors, even at the age of 4 or 5 months, they can recognize colors because they can see you. Then, of course, keep speaking to them, not in baby language, but in normal language. And then when they're about the age of 6 months, 8 months, you can start to read with them, meaning that they're actually looking at a book. Now, there's so many books out there for young people, for young kids, for 1 year, 2 years, because at that age, they're just learning like what are the things around the house, cup, spoon, the animals. When you take them to the farm, say the words in that language. And so you find that as you are introducing those words, they are learning them. Comment from Gabriela. Yes, Kyla is 9. She's not much younger than Aurelia. Yes, and Aurelia does very well with speaking English and Dutch, because Gabriela really makes it a point to speak to her in English most of the time. And I also learned from when I would be with my godchild, who is bilingual, that I used to try to speak to her in Dutch, and then I realized, no, that's actually the wrong thing. So I speak to her in English, because then she knows I speak English. And if you have any questions, guys, please put them in the chat section. So when they're older, as they get older, they begin to read. And when you have a book like this is a typical book for like a 1-year-old up to 2.5 years old. When you have a book like this, my kids loved this book, and I used to read it to them in English. And you can then read the book to them also in your local language, because you know the names of all these things, so you can say them in the local language. So when if I had a baby now, anyway, my own baby, this I do now with Kyla, because she's also still learning some of these words with my daughter. So when I point at it, because do remember that your 2-year-old is not reading the word frog. They are not reading the words. They're seeing the animal and then what you say. So instead of reading frog, I say echere. So now she knows it in English, but she also can begin to know it in my language, gonya. So I say the words in my language. Enumi, ente, enkoko. And at this age, they're also more involved in sound. So when I can say ente, moo, and then we're reading together. Empunu, oink, oink. That's how we call it. Empunu, oink, oink. So I'm reading the same book that I would read to them in English, but I'm reading it in the local language. You can do sounds, enjoka. And if you have a song about a snake, this is the time to sing it. Echugugu. So this is for when they're younger and they're just learning simple books. Now, as they grow older, it becomes, of course, more. First of all, I notice like sometimes I'm going through it and I'm thinking, oh, what is this in my language? Then I have to go and search it because my own vocabulary is also getting worse, probably. Then I have to go and search it. And if I don't know it from my daughter now, I tell her, oh, I don't know this one, I'm going to look at it. Ortangura, enjochi. So this is it. Echienje, for those who remember, cockroach, echienje. So you find that it becomes easy when you also know the language. For me, it's also a bit of practice. What about when they are older and they're now more reading stories? I'm gonna put the light away so that it's not reflecting. There's so many favorite books for kids. So this is one of the favorite books by Julia Donaldson. Julia Donaldson has so many books that are favorite for kids. So when you want to read to your child in your language, using an English book or a German book or a book in another language, first you need to know the story. So you know the story that you're going to read, and then you're going to read that one. And then you need to first go through it and make sure you know the vocabulary. So you find that to answer Marilla, your question, did you first read it with your child in English before you started saying or teaching it in your mother language? Yes, to answer your question, because like I said, initially I intended, like I said, if I knew what I knew now, I would have done it differently. I focused on English because that was also a language I was comfortable with. And I thought I don't want to confuse them. So most of these books, they first read in English. But if you have a child who is young now, like let's say you have a 1-year-old and they are going maybe to English daycare, or they'll go to English schools, or they'll have English friends, then you don't need to read it to them in English. You can read it directly in your mother tongue without having to read it in English. Because in school, like my daughter in school, in daycare, they already interact in English. So for a 15-month-old, this is really a very good one. This is a very good one because you notice that the books get more complicated. And for 15 months old, sometimes they make up their own stories. When I was working in daycare, you find that a baby of like 2 years gets a book. When she opens it, she's making up her own stories. So as you're reading with her, just do it in your language. And Marilla, which language do you speak, if I may ask? Which is your mother tongue? So you find that you can do it directly in your mother tongue. You don't have to do the English because the child is then directly getting the mother tongue. It's even easier. So if you already are speaking to your child in English, and what is the dominant language? So you, Marilla, your child is speaking Tagalog, your mother tongue is Tagalog from the Philippines. And what is the dominant language? Of which country are you living? Or what is the language of the father? Because the dominant language, you normally find that the dominant language takes over. But when you speak with your child, try as much as possible to do it in Tagalog. And when you get a book like this for your child, read to her the things in Tagalog. Then, and for Dutch, see, there's so many books in Dutch like this. So you're in a very good position because there's so many Dutch books like this. The father will read it to them, or in daycare, they'll read it in Dutch because they'll have Dutch books. And when you read it to them, like in Holland, in Dutch, they have all these books, and in the daycares. So they'll read to them in Dutch or in English, wherever they are going, if they're going to a bilingual daycare. But when you read to her the same book, you don't have to read it again in English. Just read it directly in Tagalog. And then she will be speaking both. Now, the challenge is you find that when there is a dominant language, for example, if a child goes to daycare and they speak Dutch, That might be the language of preference for them because that's what the language the friends are speaking, or when they just start in a Dutch school or in an English school, they may never talk to you like for the first 6 months to even 1 year. They may speak even Dutch. Preferably, they may prefer Dutch because that's what all the cool kids, their friends, are speaking. But continue with the input in your mother tongue because it doesn't mean that they don't understand. They're just more inclined to speak Dutch or English or whatever the dominant language. But continue, for example, Marella, continue in Tagalog for them. Krista, continue in your language for them because they can't read. So the pictures is their input. So you can use your mother tongue. Thank you very much, Gabriela, for that comment. Yes, they're not reading the words. So the words they're getting from you. So now I want to read this story because my daughter is, I used to read it to her from when she was about 6. She loves the story and she knows it because she already knows this story very much. So now I'm going to read it in my language just as a demonstration. So you need to know the words, most of the words. Encende eshovirwe. Encende eshovirwe. Encende ekihuguhugu. Mama wanje yabura. Tindareba mama wanje. Tindi kureba mama wanje. Ekihuguhugu kigira akacende. Otalira. Ninza kuyamba kuronda mama wawe. Leka turebe. Mama wawe nasha ki? Nayingana ki? Ni muhango? Ni muhango. Nansinga obuhango. Nakusinga obuhango? Mama wawe namureba. Ija akacende. Ija nanye. Ija tugende. Apana. Ogweti mama wanje. I don't know if you can see well. There's a lot of reflection. I'm going to try and turn away the light. I don't know if you can see the words. This might be better. So apana. Ogweti mama wanje. Mama wanje talina ekinyindo kiringwa n'ebyino biringwa kandi talina amaju mahango gatyo kandi omukira gweye tigureetorora aha miti. Omukira gweye gureetorora aha miti. Omukira gweye gureetorora aha miti. Gurezingazinga aha miti. Gurezinga aha miti. Oh, you can't see the words? Let me see. How will I do this? Let me try to take away the light completely. Let me see. This might be better. Let's see. Gurezingazinga aha miti. Then ari hihi munonga. Ari hihi. Ija tuze kumuronda. Apana. Ogweti mama wanje. Ejo nenjoka. Mama wanje tarashwati at all. Kandi taragenda arahisiza. Kandi tarehinguririza aha miti wena. Kandi mama wanje aina maguru minjiho. Amaguru nigo turaronda. Ija kachende. Ija. Apana. Oru norutangura. Mama wanje tariragura kandi aine obyoya. Tagomokira atyo. Taina amaguru minji nkago. Warakunda kurya ebijuma. Tarakunda kurya obushwehera. Aratura ahiguru y'emiti, ahiguru munonga. aratura higuru kuli wangambire ija tugende ngugwe ayesherekere higuru yiwe. Apana ejo ni kasuku mama taine kinyindo kikyo kandi mama wanje taine byara nkebyo taine mapapa taine mapapa kandi aragurucheza aragurucheza kashi ngugwe hariya hanyuma ndamumanya ija tugenda. Apana echi nechichere ogwo nechichere konka kihuguhuguwe leka kunzanisa mama wanje tarashwaje tarakora krok kandi mama wanje taraterera wa brown aine oruhu rw'ebyoya kandi ni murungi w'okufumbata. Ebyoya bya brown abwenki tuwangambire twaza kumubona ija tugende. Apana nga ahabwenki oraguma orakigwa mama wanje tarabyama izoba ryona arasiba izoba ryona byama kandi mama wanje taine mapapa at all kandi timuche munonga, not nearly as small, timuche munonga. Mama wawe timuche leka ndebe kanteekateke ariva aha mugyera ari kunywa amaizi. Apana ejo n'enjojo ogundi murundi wangaruza aha njojo kihuguhuguwe torareeba ngu ebi binyamiishwa byona biwanyereka kasuku orutangura enjoka akahundu empaha boona tibaranshana. None of these look like me. Tiwangambire ngu aine kushana ahabwenki kashi naabire ndamanya ngu oramanya ahabwenki hati reeba aba baana banje boona, all these children of mine, aba baana banje boona tiine oransha boona tiine oransha wagira ngu arakusha ija tugende kyakiri ekyo namanya hayesherekire ija tugende. Apana ogwe ni taata wanje ija kakyende naza kukutwara owa mama. The end. So if you know the story already, then you know you can already directly translate the story. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, but the words, you are introducing the words, and there are a lot of words they will pick. Like you notice, I keep saying apana. So you can imagine by the end of this, reading the story, they know how to say no. So that is a slight demonstration. And from it, if you do it often, the child knows more often. Noktula, you say to read in English and then mother tongue. You wish you can get Zimbabwe books too? Yes, that would be ideal. And there are not so many available. But while the kids are growing, we seize the chance. We still also introduce them to these books and read it to them in our mother tongue. So I promised you before we finish, if you have any questions, please ask. But I promised you before we finish that I will read to you a little excerpt from my from So Said Grandma. So that's what I'm going to do now. I would like to read one because I will share a small story about this book. When I wrote this book and some of my friends bought it, a friend of mine came back thanking. She was more thanking me and asking if I have more books. And obviously then I didn't have more books. And the reason she was asking is because when her son picked up the book, and they're from Cameroon, when her son picked up the book and started reading it, he was very excited. He also found, because her son is an independent reader, he was more excited by this page, which has chores for different ages. And she saw that Kyla had his chores and Myron had his chores. And he asked the mother, he said, "Where are my chores? How come I have no chores?" So he started apparently doing more chores, and he had his chores list, which he followed religiously. So one of my favorite sayings, Kyla is asking which saying is my favorite. One of my favorite sayings is on page 46, which says, "Tokajirembwa okamoka." I remember at one point when we were at Gabriella's house and I was talking about this saying with one of the friends of ours from France, and he was like, "This saying can be very offensive." It says, "Toka jirembwa okamoka," which means you should not bark for yourself when you own a dog. And then, that's interrupting. And then it's also translated in Dutch. And why he was upset is because he said, "Are you thinking that children are dogs?" Because in my language, my mom always said this to me. Like when my mom wants to send you, says, "Go and bark." Like you can't have a dog and bark. My mom is basically saying, I have children. There are some chores that I cannot do myself. And so for us, it became obvious. We never at one point thought, "Oh, we were being referred to as dogs." No, that's not the meaning. It's a kind of most of the sayings in our language were to do with animals, nature, way of life. So I used to tell that to my children as well. And if I have children, they can do the simpler jobs that are for their age, and then I can focus on more complicated jobs like earning a living, and. So in those days, I will read about it. In those days, the main job of a dog was to guard a home. It did so by barking when there was trouble. So if there was a stranger, the dog would bark. This alerted the owners to take care and look out that there might be someone. So this dog-owner relationship, it says if a person purposely bought a dog, then they expect that the dog will bark, so they don't need to bark for themselves. This saying is not similar to "you can't have your cake and eat it too." That is also another saying in the book. This saying is basically saying, let everybody do the jobs for which they are responsible for, so that even in the home, everyone has their jobs to do. Who is needing to do the vacuuming? Who is needing to do the ironing? Who is needing to do the taking care of, for example, dishes? So it's different from not having your cake and eating it. It's about everyone taking care of their chores. So it's not like the parents will go around doing everything while the kids sit down, because imagine if you had a dog and then you also have to guard the house for yourself and bark when there is an intruder. So I added this disclaimer because, a friend was thinking culturally for some other people, they can think this as an insult. Are you saying that kids are they should do the menial tasks. No, this is tasks for their experience. So they should do the tasks for their experience. So this was my father's favorite saying because she used it a lot. She was telling us indirectly that she cannot give birth to us, take care of us, raise us, and still do most of the household chores. Elders wanted to show us our responsibilities as children so that we could know what is expected of us. It is also a saying about delegating. If you're in a job, there are some jobs you have to delegate to others so that you can get your own jobs done. So adults were not expected to do kids' jobs except when kids were not around or if they didn't have a kid. So because African families were generally large extended families, an extended family had children of different ages. So they did different chores. There were cousins, there were aunties. So tasks were divided according to the child and according to the ability. If you see this picture that I used, you have people doing different tasks. She's washing dishes, mommy is cooking, grandpa is tending to the baby and telling them a story. Father and brother are fixing the bike. This is probably two sisters or auntie and a sister are peeling. This one is cleaning the compound. So everybody has their chores. And so you find that, for example, grandparents, their job was also to pass on knowledge and teach the young ones. So this is very important that people naturally learned the activities of natural living. You find that now the child knows how to do their chores. So what you find, for example, I put this as a chores list for Kyla. It's written, they do their chores, they write them in their own writing, and a chores list for Myron. They were younger then, now their chores are a bit more complicated. And so when another child is reading this, is thinking, oh, I need to take on chores. I need to do something because, my friend is doing something. So why I'm using this example and this saying is that sometimes for kids, learning is through books. So it is a way that we impart our culture, our expected behavior to our children through books. Because you can imagine the mother of this child had spent days and probably raising them, trying to get them to do their chores, and it is quite difficult. And in the end, just from reading this book, he came to Bami and said, what are my chores exactly? I want to know my chores. So in line with this, children showed respect to elders in ways like a child always greeted the adults. A child helps to find a seat for an adult. A child will not remain seated when an older person is standing, like when they have nowhere to sit. A child will help when they see an adult struggling with, let's say, groceries or something. They should help. And you find that a lot of parents say, oh, when the children are growing up here in Europe, they're taking on different manners. But then the thing is, they're teaching them of their culture, how you expect them to behave has to be at home. So that is why these kinds of materials, books, are an easy way for you to pass on your culture. So if I tell my child, Tokajire moka moka, they know exactly what I mean. And yes, Gabriela, the when two elephants fight, the grass suffers. That one is also one of the sayings in this book, because it is a very important one for teaching, like moral lessons that, sometimes your actions do not affect only you, they affect also people who are seemingly not involved in your fight. I mean, when two elephants are fighting, the grass is really not involved, but they do get affected. So when two elephants fight, it is the grass that suffers. And so when sometimes you're talking to your children using these wise sayings, it helps. It helps pass on the message to them. So with this, I would like to conclude our celebration of the International Mother Language Day. I wish it was in person. I wish we could, say, okay, it's now time for some refreshment or for a cup of tea. And I'm happy that now we have more and more relaxing of restrictions. So very soon we shall be able to meet in person. And for those who are not living in Holland, we shall also find a way for still keeping you involved in the discussion. Please keep this discussion going. And I don't know if there are any questions, and if there are any questions, I'll keep looking through the comments and I will answer them along the way if there are questions that come up later. If there is no other question, I would like to encourage you to see the teaching of the mother language as a positive thing. And for those of us who grew up with a negative experience of mother language, it's just a way for me to say that it is very important. Let's carry it on. Let's try to introduce the mother language to our children. If you have any email, if you would like to email something, or if you'd like to discuss something, then please, you can put also in the comment box. I'll put in the email. You can email us directly. You can also look on our website. If you have some ideas on how we can increase the learning, especially if you live in the Netherlands, learning of the mother language, or if you have some activities that are upcoming, please share them. And otherwise, we at the Africa Culture Promotion Center, we shall continue to create some resources. And now coming, a lot of people ask me, they said, you have a book in Acholi, you have a book in Kinyarwanda. Where is the book in Runyankole, which is your mother tongue? So I didn't make one yet because I know I used for my children. And in the coming 3 months, the book in Runyankole will be out for children trying to learn Runyankole. So Marella has 3 languages at the same time, just okay to do. Would that hinder my child's speaking development? So Marella, unless the child has a learning difficulty, like there's some difficulties and that affect learning, no, the child can learn as many languages, up to 4 comfortably. What is important is that each section, like you stick to Tagalog, your husband speaks to the child in Dutch, the child will probably get English or get more Dutch from daycare, and which is the 3rd language you want to add. Whoever is adding that 3rd language is also consistent in speaking the language. The children know when they turn to you, they'll speak Tagalog, and when they turn to daddy, they'll speak Dutch. That's normally, for them, it's quite automatic. So, so if the father is English, then the father can, since the child is in Holland, if the child goes to a Dutch daycare, then the father can just speak English to the child. So father English, you Tagalog, and Dutch in daycare and with playing friends. And the child will be just fine. 3, 4 languages, the child will learn just easily. And if you have any questions, Marilla, I'm also going to put my email in the chat section. I'll pin it out there so that if you have questions or things you would like to ask or things you'd like to discuss, we can get in touch. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for your time. I do not take it for granted. And I do love you. If you didn't subscribe, please subscribe. We have more events and we try to do a mix of live and in-person events so that you can be always updated. And let's see. Yeah, well, the thing, Gabriela, is because your children, Gabriela is saying that wishful thinking about speaking one language to one parent and the other language to the other parent. At least that's not the case in my household. It is likely not to be the case if the children know, Gabriela, your children know that you understand Dutch. So when they are in school and the dominant language in school is Dutch, they can speak to you in Dutch because they know you understand it. But when they do, then you speak back to them in English. So they will speak to you in Dutch because they know you understand it. But when it is from an early age that you're speaking one language, you find that the kids kind of like when you speak to them in your language, they kind of think that's the only language you understand. Later, when they discover that you also know the other language, yes, they might speak it to you in that language. One tip that you can do, if you can set aside one day a week as a start, where you know that day, mother tongue. Like for those of you who have older kids, like Zainab, your kids are older. If you set aside and say, on Sunday, we speak Luganda, and that's it. They will speak it. So you can start slowly like that because your kids understand Luganda. They just don't have enough input. But when they go to Uganda, everyone expects them to know Luganda. So thank you, everyone, if you are for sticking with us. Thank you for those who stuck till the end. And I wish you the best. I wish you a good week, and I wish you a good year. And I hope to see you soon. Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye.